The Nautiloid groans around him like a dying whale, tentacle-veined walls pulsing with pinkish light, and Saitama stands in the middle of it all, with his hands in his pockets, unimpressed. A brain-shaped horror, the size of a bus, drifts past a viewport, and somewhere behind him a woman in strange plate armor is screaming something about a Mind Flayer. He glances at the tadpole squirming in a nearby tank and thinks, distantly, that it looks like a large maggot. When an intellect devourer skitters across the floor toward him, jaws clicking, he flicks it out of the air with one finger. It hits the wall hard enough to leave a dent, twitches once, and stops moving. The armored woman Lae'zel, though he doesn't know that yet, stares at him like he's grown a second head. "That was a killing blow," she says, "and you did not even look at it." "I don't really look at most things," Saitama says. Saves time. They find Shadowheart, unconscious, near a cracked artifact case. And when a cambion drops down from the ceiling, breathing threats about a soul it intends to collect, Saitama steps between them without any particular urgency and puts it through the floor with an open palm. The ship lurches. Fire alarms he can't understand blare in some infernal tongue. Somewhere above them, glowing tentacles are prying the vessel apart, and a squid-faced pilot named Withers-knows-what shouts for them to reach the helm. Saitama doesn't reach the helm. He falls out of the sky instead, punches a diving pod on the way down out of pure reflex, and lands on a riverbank with a crater-shaped dent in the mud and absolutely no injuries. This is how his first morning in the Forgotten Realms begins. Soaked, bored, and vaguely annoyed that he still doesn't know what a Mind Flayer actually is. Lae'zel finds him first, hauling herself out of the water with murder in her eyes until she recognizes him from the ship. She explains, tersely, that they've both been infected with an illithid tadpole, that it will transform them into monsters unless removed, and that she intends to find a way to stop this transformation by any means necessary. Saitama pats his own head like he's checking for a hat. He doesn't feel any different. He never really feels different from anything. "Guess I've got a worm in my brain," he says. "That's new. You should be more concerned," Lae'zel says. "I get concerned about grocery sales. This is just weird." They meet Shadowheart soon after, prickly and secretive, clutching an artifact she won't explain, wary of everyone including herself. When a group of goblins ambushes the group near the beach snarling, outnumbering them 5-1, Javelin's raised Saitama steps forward before anyone can draw a weapon and simply walks through the middle of them. He doesn't punch most of them. He doesn't need to. The air pressure alone from his stride sends 2 goblins tumbling off a ledge, and the one that gets close enough to matter is dispatched with a flick that looks almost gentle and lands like a cannon shot. Shadowheart lowers her mace slowly, uncertain whether to be relieved or terrified. "What are you?" she asks. "Guy who buys stuff on sale," Saitama says. "Groceries, mostly. You want to team up or not? I don't really care either way, but you both seem lost. It's not exactly inspiring. It's not exactly anything, but something about his utter lack of pretense. No boasting, no god complex, no secret agenda makes both women decide, independently, that traveling with him beats traveling alone with a parasite in their skulls. Since Saitama has no tadpole powers of his own, worth mentioning he can't speak with fish, can't sense the wounded, can't do any of the strange illithid party tricks the others discover in themselves. He leans on them completely for anything the tadpole touches. When Lae'zel later uses her budding abilities to commune with a dying Githyanki soldier, or when Shadowheart deciphers Netherese runes with unsettling ease, Saitama just stands off to the side, eating a ration bar and nodding along, letting them do the parts of the story that are actually about being infected by an eldritch horror. He is fairly certain, and correctly so, that whatever is inside his skull is having an extremely bad time. The road into the wilderness introduces the rest of the group one by one, and Saitama recruits each of them with the same disarming lack of drama. He finds Astarion crouched over a corpse near a ruined chapel, fangs bared, mid-confession about being a vampire spawn who needs blood to survive the tadpole's grip, clearly expecting to be attacked or exploited. Saitama just shrugs. "Vampire, huh? You gonna bite me? Would you let me?" Astarion asks, testing. "Not really my thing, but I don't care that you're a vampire. Free country. You coming or not?" Astarion, who has spent decades being someone's property, doesn't quite know what to do with a companion who neither fears him nor wants anything from him. He tags along, half out of curiosity, half because it's clearly the safer option compared to wandering the woods alone. Gale is found next, sitting cross-legged near a portal stone with a small, contained magical explosion smoking gently in his chest cavity, lecturing about Netherese magic to absolutely no one. Saitama listens for exactly 4 sentences before his eyes glaze over, but he offers Gale a hand up anyway, and that's apparently enough charm for a stranded wizard starved of company. Wyll is rescued from a goblin ambush of his own, the Blade of Frontiers, playing hero with more bravado than backup and Saitama's flat, undramatic dispatching of the goblins threatening him earns a startled, respectful nod rather than the awe Wyll is used to inspiring in others. And Karlach, the tiefling seeming devil with the infernal engine heart, freshly escaped from Avernus, punching a hyena the size of a horse into paste with her bare fists, takes one look at Saitama, casually shattering a boulder that had pinned her leg and grins so wide it nearly splits her face. Finally, she says, "Someone who hits stuff as hard as I do. You hit things too?" Saitama asks, mildly interested for the first time all day. Try to keep up. He does not, in fact, need to try, but he appreciates the enthusiasm. With the party assembling, the quests of the wilderness begin properly, and Saitama drifts through them with the same bored competence. At the Druid Grove, tensions simmer between the druids and the refugee tieflings sheltering there, and the party is pulled into choosing sides almost immediately. Kaga, the ambitious druid acolyte, wants the tieflings gone, one way or another, and when Saitama stumbles into a ritual meant to intimidate the refugees into leaving, he simply lifts the ceremonial totem out of the ground, tucks it under one arm like a rolled-up rug, and asks Kaga, with genuine confusion, why she's trying to scare a bunch of homeless kids. She doesn't have a good answer. The tieflings stay. Word spreads through the grove that a strange bald man broke their sacred pillar without even trying, and for reasons nobody can quite explain, that story makes the refugees feel a little safer. The choices keep coming. A Cambion posing as a wounded man named Zevlor's contact turns out to be Auntie Ethel in disguise, a hag offering gifts wrapped in poisoned bargains, and when Saitama follows a lost boy's trail to her lair beneath a rotting cottage, he wanders through her hut of transformed victims, hollowed-out husks, and twisted, whimpering creatures with the same mild unease a person might feel walking through an overly elaborate haunted house at a fair. Ethel offers him a bargain of his own, power beyond his wildest dreams, in exchange for a piece of himself. Saitama considers it for about a second and a half. "I'm already about as strong as I need to be," he says. "But you should probably stop hurting people." "Foolish little cousin," Ethel hisses. "You don't know what you're refusing." He doesn't let her finish the sentence. The blow that ends her is almost polite in its efficiency, and her ancient, centuries-old magic evaporates without ceremony, along with every twisted victim she'd been keeping half alive as playthings. When the party frees the transformed villagers afterward, Shadowheart mutters that most groups take days of planning and a small army to bring down a hag of Ethel's power. Saitama just shrugs and asks if there's a shop nearby, because he's pretty sure he needs new socks. Deeper choices follow as the group investigates the Underdark and the goblin camp threatening the grove above. In the goblin camp itself, 3 merciless leaders, Dror Ragzlin, Priestess Gut, and Minthara the Drow Commander rule over a warband gearing towards slaughtering the Druid Grove's refugees outright. The party can infiltrate, sabotage, or simply walk through the front gate, and Saitama, characteristically, chooses the least subtle option available. He strolls into the camp in broad daylight, ignores 3 separate ambush attempts because he genuinely doesn't notice them happening, and ends up in a one-sided shouting match with Dror Ragzlin over a captured owlbear cub. The goblins have been torturing for sport. When Ragzlin refuses to let it go, Saitama's expression doesn't change at all. No anger, no gritted teeth, nothing dramatic right up until his fist ends. The argument entirely, and the goblin leadership structure ceases to exist in the space of about 4 seconds. Minthara, watching from a balcony above, recognizes a losing position when she sees one, and offers the party a bargain of her own. But Saitama, uninterested in politics, and even less interested in massacring refugees for a drow commander's approval, turns her down flat. The owlbear cub is rescued. It follows the party around for the rest of the day, and Saitama, to everyone's mild surprise, seems genuinely pleased about that part more than anything else that happened. Magic items pile up steadily throughout these opening weeks, though Saitama treats most of them with the same detachment he treats everything else. Gale, still smoldering faintly from the arcane instability lodged in his chest, explains that he needs to consume magic items periodically, or the necrotic energy inside him will detonate and take a city block with it. Saitama, who cannot be harmed by much of anything, offers to just stand next to Gale when the wizard's chest starts glowing, on the theory that an explosion probably won't bother him. It's an oddly practical solution that actually works more than once, though Gale insists on finding real magic items regardless, partly out of professional pride. The party recovers a sword that hums faintly with radiant energy from a fallen paladin's corpse near a windmill, and armor enchanted against poison from the wreck of a Gentarim smuggling operation hidden beneath the grove. And Astarion practically vibrates with excitement over a ring that lets its wearer see in complete darkness, which he insists is basic vampire decor and refuses to give up. None of these items mean much to Saitama personally. He could probably survive being hit by the ground itself, but he lets his companions equip them freely, understanding, in his own quiet way, that they need every advantage he doesn't. The Underdark, when the party descends into it chasing rumors of a way to remove their tadpoles, offers its own catalog of horrors and treasures. Myconid colonies, Duergar slave camps, a boulette tunneling beneath the earth like a burrowing shark. Saitama handles each threat with the same anticlimactic efficiency, though he does admit, quietly, to Karlach one evening, that the giant spiders are the one thing in this world that genuinely make his skin crawl. Not scared of much, he tells her, but I really don't like spiders. Karlach laughs so hard she nearly falls into a chasm, and from that point on she makes a small, private habit of standing between Saitama and any arachnid larger than a dinner plate, an act of camaraderie he never asks for and never quite acknowledges, but clearly appreciates. Nere, a Duergar leader trapped beneath a rock slide and bargaining for his freedom in exchange for wiping out a nearby gnomish settlement, presents the party with one of its uglier choices: help him and doom the gnomes, or refuse and possibly lose whatever aid he could offer. Saitama, once again, opts for the third option nobody planned for. He simply pulls the rock slide off Nair with his bare hands, ignores the Duergar's demands entirely, and walks away, letting the gnomes handle their own fate without further Duergar interference. It isn't a clever solution. It isn't even really a solution to anything Nere wanted solved, but it works, and the gnomish enclave survives, and Saitama spends the rest of the evening complaining that his hands are dusty and there's no sink anywhere in this godforsaken cave system. By the time the party claws its way back to the surface, having weathered goblins, hags, Duergar, and a small ocean's worth of Underdark horror, they've also acquired a certain reputation. Word travels through the Sword Coast of a bald, unassuming man who ended conflicts other adventurers would need armies to survive, who did it without ever once raising his voice, and who, according to at least one increasingly unreliable tavern rumor, apparently defeated a hag by asking her to stop being mean. It isn't glamorous. Saitama doesn't want it to be. But as the party finally turns north, toward the cursed lands rumored to hide both a cure for their tadpoles and a darkness far older than any of them expected, even Lae'zel has stopped questioning why she's still traveling with him. He's useful, he's honest, and whatever's coming next, she suspects he'll punch it too. The shadow-cursed lands swallow the sky first, a rolling, sourceless dark that eats torchlight and makes even Saitama, who has never once flinched at anything, admit that it's kind of a lot. Shadow curse victims wander the roads as gaunt husks, twisted by the darkness into shambling threats, and the party's entry point is a besieged inn called Last Light, the sole remaining refuge against the encroaching gloom. Its keeper, Jaheira, a veteran of decades of adventuring, sharp-tongued and unimpressed by nearly everyone, takes one look at Saitama's utterly unbothered stroll through a horde of shadow-cursed creatures outside the inn's wards, and decides, on the spot, that whatever he is, he's useful enough to trust. The inn's protective barrier is failing, its light source dimming, and the party quickly learns the reason. Isabel, the inn's healer, is being hunted, and the source of her power and the shadow curse plaguing the region traces back to the shadow druids, the goddess Shar, and a long-dead general named Ketheric Thorm who has not, in fact, stayed dead. The choices in this act cut deeper than the first. When the Night Song, an ancient elven songstress named Isabel, imprisoned in ageless slumber for a century, the true source of Last Light's protective radiance is finally located within the Gauntlet of Shar. The party must decide whether to free her. Killing her would please the goddess Shar and grant powerful boons from her clergy, or freeing her would restore hope and light to the cursed region at the cost of angering a god. The temptation is real. Shar's chosen, a masked figure of considerable menace, makes the offer explicit, dangling promised power in front of the party like bait. Saitama listens to the entire pitch with his arms crossed, waits for it to finish, and then asks the only question that seems to matter to him. If we kill her, does the dark stuff go away, or does it get worse? Worse, Shadowheart admits, quietly, still wrestling with her own tangled loyalty to Shar even as she says it. Then no, Saitama says. Easy. It isn't framed as heroism. He isn't moved by songs of freedom or symbolic light against darkness. He's doing basic math about outcomes, the same way he'd decide whether to take the stairs or the elevator. But the simplicity of his reasoning cuts through weeks of the party's hesitation, and Isabel is freed, her light restored, the curse over Last Light lifted at last. Shadowheart, who has spent the entire act wrestling with whether her faith in Shar is built on anything worth keeping, watches Saitama's flat, unbothered certainty and starts, quietly, to question her god for the first time in her life. It's the beginning of a longer reckoning for her, one that will eventually cost her the goddess she's served since childhood, though she doesn't know that yet. The House of Grief, hidden beneath the town of Wreathwyn, holds its own trial for anyone seeking Shar's favor, a ritual sacrifice of a beloved companion, demanded as the price of entry to deeper secrets. Saitama is offered the choice to sacrifice one of his own party members on the altar to proceed. He looks at the altar. He looks at the priestess presiding over it. He does not look, even briefly, at any of his companions as potential offerings. Nah, he says. And instead of the ritual sacrifice, he simply punches the entire trial into rubble, along with most of the temple's supporting architecture. The priestess doesn't get a chance to object. Neither does the temple, structurally speaking. Shadowheart, watching centuries of Sharan tradition crumble in front of her because a bored man in ill-fitting armor decided the whole ceremony was stupid, feels something shift loose in her chest that she'll spend the rest of the story figuring out how to name. Ketheric Thorm himself proves to be the act's central tragedy and its central threat. All at once, a general so broken by grief over his dead daughter that he bargained with Shar to bring her back, only to lose himself entirely to the goddess's machinations in the process. When the party finally confronts him at Moonrise Towers, his defeat comes in stages. First his mortal body, then the strange resurrection granted by Shar's power. And Saitama handles both with the same weary economy he's shown all game, though there's something almost gentle in how he does it. He doesn't gloat, doesn't linger, doesn't make Thorm's death into a spectacle. When it's over, he just sits down on a nearby crate and asks if anyone else is hungry, because apparently ending a Shar-empowered general's decades-long torment takes less out of him than skipping breakfast does. Recruitment continues through the act's darker corners. Minthara, if spared and later broken free from Shar's control at Moonrise, can be convinced to join the party outright, and Saitama, true to form, extends the same flat, judgment-free offer he's given everyone else. You tried to kill some kids earlier, he tells her. Don't do that again and we're fine. It isn't forgiveness exactly. It's just Saitama's particular brand of moving on, and Minthara, who has spent her whole life under systems of cruelty and control, finds his indifference to her past strangely, unexpectedly freeing. Halsin, the shape-shifting druid who'd been captured and tortured within Thorm's stronghold, is also freed during this stretch, and adds his own considerable strength to the party's ranks, delighted to finally have allies capable of matching a goblin warband stride for stride, though even he admits, watching Saitama flatten a shambling mound with one hand while eating dried fruit with the other, that he's never seen strength quite like it. The magic items of this act carry heavier weight than the first, tied more directly to the region's grim history. A sunblade recovered from a fallen paladin's tomb, one of the few weapons capable of cutting through shadow-cursed creatures without hesitation, goes to Wyll, who wields it with the kind of righteous flourish that makes even Saitama roll his eyes fondly. A set of gloves that let the wearer see through illusions surfaces in the ruins beneath moonrise, and Gale claims them eagerly, muttering about how useful they'll be for detecting Netherese wardwork later on. Astarion, prowling through Thorm's collection of trophies and stolen valuables, finds a rapier that whispers faintly of old murders, and takes an immediate, delighted liking to it. Finally, an accessory with some personality, he says, admiring the blade like it's jewelry rather than a weapon soaked in tragedy. Saitama himself picks up almost nothing of note through the whole act, mostly because none of it changes how easily he ends every fight he's dragged into, though he does keep a single, plain wooden bead necklace he finds in Isabel's old belongings, less because it's magical, and more because it reminds him, in some small way, of the kind of ordinary trinket a kid back in his old world might have worn. By the act's end, with Ketheric Thorm defeated, the shadow curse broken, and Last Light's light restored to the region, the party has grown into something resembling family bickering, complicated, occasionally furious with one another, but bound together by weeks of shared horror and, increasingly, shared trust in the unassuming bald man at the center of it all. Even Lae'zel, who spent the first weeks of the journey convinced Saitama's strength must be some trick of illithid corruption, has come to accept, grudgingly, that he's simply built differently, a fact she finds equal parts baffling and, in her own martial way, deeply respectable. As the party turns their eyes south toward the sprawling, corrupt sprawl of Baldur's Gate itself, and the true soul plot orchestrated by the Absolute finally begins pulling all its threads taut, Saitama's only real concern is whether the big city has decent grocery stores, because he's been living off trail rations for 2 months and frankly, he's had enough. Baldur's Gate rises out of the haze like a city already choking on its own secrets, crowded streets, gilded temples, sewers thick with cultists, and beneath it all, the slow, patient hunger of an elder brain waiting to be born. The party arrives to find the city fracturing under multiple crises at once. A Steelwatch army of animated constructs meant to protect the populace has been corrupted and turned into an instrument of slaughter. The cult of the Absolute has infiltrated the city's power structures at every level. And somewhere in the shadows, a serial killer wearing stolen faces is hunting the party specifically, murdering doppelgangers of them and leaving the corpses as calling cards. Saitama's reaction to learning all of this, delivered in a tense war room briefing by a captured Gondian named Wulbrin and a nervous flaming skull creature named Withers, is characteristically understated. "So basically everything here wants to kill everyone," he says. "Got it. Where's the market?" He gets his market eventually, wandering Baldur's Gate's crowded stalls with Karlach while the others chase leads on the Steel Watch's corrupted core. And it's here, in this brief moment of ordinary city life, that the story finds one of its quieter character beats. Karlach, cursed by her infernal engine heart to never again feel a gentle human touch without being burned by her own body's heat, admits to Saitama, of all people, how much she misses the simple things, the smell of bread, a hand on her shoulder, existing without being a walking furnace. Saitama, who has never been particularly good with emotional conversations, doesn't offer platitudes. He just buys her a ridiculous amount of street food instead, enough to feed 6 people, and sits with her on a low wall until she stops looking so sad. It isn't a grand romantic gesture. It's just Saitama being Saitama. And Karlach, watching him methodically work through a paper cone of fried dough like it's the most important task in the world, finds herself laughing for the first time in days. The Iron Throne, the shipbuilding company secretly repurposed into the seat of the cult of the Absolute's naval power, becomes one of the act's major infiltration points, and the party's assault on it forces another significant choice, whether to save the Steel Watch's foundry from sabotage, preventing further corrupted constructs from being deployed against the city, or to prioritize other objectives and let the foundry burn. Saitama, predictably, doesn't see it as a choice requiring much deliberation. He simply does both, moving with a speed that leaves half the party wondering, again, exactly what he actually is. He clears the foundry of enemy forces before the saboteurs can finish their work, then doubles back through the sewers in time to help the others corner Grand Duke Ravengard's kidnappers, saving the city's highest official from execution by cultists with time to spare. Wyll, whose own storyline has quietly built toward a reckoning with his father Ravengard himself, it turns out, hidden behind a mask of political duty, watches Saitama's effortless rescue with something between gratitude and disbelief, and the two share a rare, genuine handshake once the dust settles. Orin the Red, the shape-shifting ballist assassin responsible for the doppelganger murders, finally reveals herself partway through the act, having spent weeks impersonating party members to sow chaos and, in one particularly cruel twist, kidnapping and replacing Alfira, a bard the party may have befriended earlier in the journey, using her stolen face to lure them into a trap in the Temple of Baal. The confrontation is one of the story's darkest moments. Orin gleeful and unhinged, reveling in murder as an act of worship, taunting the party with the corpse of the person she's been wearing as a mask. Saitama, who has spent the whole game mostly bored by threats, finally looks something close to genuinely annoyed. "You killed someone just to wear their face," he says, flat and cold in a way none of the party has heard from him before. "That's not even creative, that's just mean." Orin doesn't survive the sentence by much. It's the one fight in the entire journey where Saitama moves with anything resembling actual intent. No wasted motion, no idle commentary about groceries, just an ending, swift and absolute. And when it's over, he stands over her for a long moment before turning away without a word. The party doesn't ask him about it. Somehow, everyone understands. The endgame draws the threads together at last. The Elder Brain itself, nurtured beneath the city by the cult and revealed to be manipulated in turn by a trio of ancient, imprisoned Netherese Mind Flayers, known as the Netherbrain's true masters, threatens to absorb the entire population of Baldur's Gate into a single, unified hive consciousness. The final choices of the campaign stack up here, weighty and irreversible, whether to destroy the artifact that could grant one of the party true illithid powers strong enough to challenge the brain directly, or resist that temptation entirely and find another way. Whether Gale, if his personal arc has led there, chooses to detonate his unstable Netherese orb to end the threat once and for all, sacrificing himself in the process, or finds an alternative solution instead. Whether the party frees or destroys the Mind Flayer collaborators being held captive as potential allies, because Saitama carries no illithid tadpole powers worth. Speaking of his own tadpole, having apparently given up trying to influence a mind, it cannot budge the temptation of ascending into some new, monstrous strength never even applies to him. He watches Shadowheart, Lae'zel, and the others wrestle with the offer, quietly reminding each of them, in his own plain way, that he doesn't think any of them need to become something else to be strong enough for what's coming. "You're all already pretty tough," he tells them during a quiet moment on the eve of the final battle. "Didn't need worm powers to get here. Don't need 'em to finish it either." It isn't eloquent. It's not meant to be. But for a group of people who have spent the entire campaign afraid of what the tadpoles inside them might turn them into, hearing it stated so plainly by someone who has never once needed any power beyond his own two hands lands harder than any speech could have. The assault on the Elder Brain's lair unfolds as the campaign's grand finale cultists, illithid guardians, and finally, the Netherbrain itself. A colossal, writhing mass of stolen thought and psychic hunger rising to meet them in the ruins beneath the city. Every companion gets their moment. Lae'zel cutting a path toward vengeance for her people. Astarion finally choosing, on his own terms, whether to seize the power of ascension and become the monster his old master wanted him to be, or reject it entirely and remain simply himself. Wyll standing tall as the blade of frontiers his city always needed. Karlach fighting with a fury built from months of stolen gentleness finally given somewhere to go. Gale weighing his own life against the fate of an entire city. Shadowheart making peace, at last, with the goddess she's decided she no longer serves. And Saitama, at the center of it. Wading into the Netherbrain's defenses, the way he's waded into everything since the moment he woke up on that crashing ship without fear. without hesitation, without any real sense that this fight is different from any other, right up until his fist connects with the thing that has been orchestrating a city's slow-motion nightmare for months, and it simply, finally, stops. The silence afterward is enormous. Baldur's Gate stands, its people spared, its steel watch stilled, its cult scattered and broken. The party, Saitama's party, built one unlikely recruitment at a time from a beach littered with wreckage to the ruins beneath a saved city, stands together in the aftermath, exhausted, changed, and, against every reasonable expectation, still whole. Karlach asks what he's planning to do now that the world isn't ending. Saitama thinks about it for a moment, scratching the back of his neck, looking out over a city that has no idea how close it came to disappearing entirely. "Dunno," he says. "Probably see if there's a sale on capes somewhere. This world's gotta have some kind of hero gig going, right?" Nobody argues with him. After everything they've seen him do without ever seeming to try, none of them doubt for a second that he'll find one.